Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 251 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTG Goldfish, Richard. How's it going this fine Monday, Richard?
Hey, Seth, the world has changed. Elk are gone. Hunting season is
Extinct.
Over? Starting? I don't even know. We've lost a species in the magic world today.
Yeah, usually I feel bad when I hear about animals going extinct, but not elk.
It's global warming. It's finally
Good
happened.
riddance. Of course, here to celebrate the end of Elk Standard, Crim. This has to be like the best Crim day, right?
Well, see, I'm not celebrating the end of Elk Standard. I'm celebrating one card that I have. Like, to be honest with you, I could have gotten elked for the rest of my life. The thing here is, Veil of Summer is gone. So that is all I've been. This is the best Monday I've had in a long time.
You're such a dirty control player, Crim. You're like, I don't have any creatures, so what do I care if you try to turn my stuff into elk? But if you counter my counter spell with your Veil of Summer, it's on.
It's like elking my counter spells. That I guess is like, yeah, like it just feels so bad when it happens. But nope, not today. We are in the clear today.
Well, as you probably gathered from our little intro here, Bannings going to be one of our big topics today. We got the BNR that we've been waiting for a while this morning. Tons of changes kind of across formats, really. But specifically Standard, that's where the biggest changes are. We also have some interesting arena stuff, a special event, an announcement about the future of Historic and the future of the client in general. We had the SCG Invitational featuring Pioneer on the big stage, so we'll touch on that a little bit. Answer your fish mail, of course, too. So we're going to jump right into it, but before we do, a super quick reminder that our show today is brought to you by the new apparel store of Spikes Academy. And if you like magic-related t-shirts, you should check out their new website, spikesacademy.myshopify.com. They have some really cool t-shirt designs, magic-related. So thank you to Spikes Academy for supporting the show. spikesacademy.myshopify.com. Check them out for cool t-shirts. Anyway, with our sponsorship stuff out of the way, let's talk banning. So, Richard, I'm sure you got the BNR in front of you. Why don't you walk us through what actually changed on the BNR today?
All right. So sweeping changes across multiple formats. We'll start off with Standard. Oko, Thief of Crowns, is banned. Once Upon a Time is banned. Veil of Summer is banned.
Yes.
The big three. So I guess you can go Goose into Paradise Druid into Nissa still, but you're going to have to do it the fair way without tutoring up a turn one Goose and without protecting everything with Oko. But Green has got the ban hammer. Green was dealt swift justice this morning. They weren't fooling around. They were like, Oko's gone. We'll take Once Upon a Time, and why not? Veil of Summer too. So all of them gone. So what does Standard look like now?
Good. Really, really good. It's like when you've just like had a long hot day in the summer and you finally had that ice cold glass of refreshing water. That's only just because Veil of Summer is gone. Once again, you know what's great about it too? I just want to say, by the way, how good of a Monday this is. I logged into Arena. And you know what my quest was? It was a $750 gold quest for casting...
Play 15 to fairies.
No, close. Cast 30 blue or black spells. I'm like, yes, I can. Yes, I can.
You know, it should be resolve 30 blue or black spells. Like, are you trying to finish a quest? Veil of Summer.
Oh, that would be so brutal and so funny. So, I mean, I think this is pretty close to like what my ideal ban list was. I mean, we all figured Oko had to go just because people would freak out so much. But then they hit two additional cards. Once Upon a Time, the consistency that it is added to the format is pretty over the top. And then Veil of Summer just shuts down all the answers. So I feel like they kind of did really well with this BNR announcement as far as Standard is concerned. I think this is pretty much all we could have hoped for as far as hopefully a big enough change that the metagame will kind of normalize a little bit. We won't have one deck at 70% of the meta or whatever, which was just super ridiculous. So I'm actually kind of excited to play Standard again. What does Standard look like moving forward? That's a big question and a good question, and it's partly because the format was so green heading into this banning. Even if we discount the food decks, most of the other decks in the format, like sacrifice style decks, there's this Jund deck, there's Gruul decks, there's Golgari Adventures. We're playing Veil of Summers. They're playing Once Upon a Times. I know, Richard, you were playing some green-based adventure decks, and you were saying you're kind of worried that they won't be good enough without Once Upon a Time to find Edgewell Innkeeper. Like, do you think those decks are going to fall off the face of the earth because of this banning?
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Selesnya, and I've been abusing Once Upon a Time. Like it's nobody's business, because you need the Edgewell Innkeeper. So I think Selesnya Adventures as a deck is gone, because you're literally playing like a mediocre limited deck without your Edgewell Innkeeper. But I think Golgari might have a shot. Golgari is like a rock, good stuff deck with Edgewell Innkeeper to push it over the top. So I think that deck will do fine without Innkeeper. But my Selesnya Adventures deck, which I've been collecting all of the storybook card styles for. I'm a little sad this morning. I have to shed a little tear for it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to play Fairy Godmother anymore in Standard.
So, Krim, I know you're just going to jam Teferi decks, but what do you think's, discounting your love of Teferi, what do you think's going to rise to the top of the metagame for normal players?
Cats. Cats. Lots of cats.
Timeline.
Even without Oko, sure, you still can do, you still have the cat combo with the Witch's Oven, and then you also get to do, Trail of Crumbs is still pretty decent. I don't know if it's gonna be still a value engine without Oko, but I mean, all the time I play against cat decks, and even without Oko, they are still able to go wild with, food from Goose, all this other stuff. So I think the cat deck is still pretty solid. It's why now I've shifted to 3 Kayas in the main deck, Orzhov Usurper and stuff like that. So, and you can even play maybe Esper Stacks, things like that. You'll see a little bit more of that, but the cat deck is probably the biggest thing going into this new standard.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I definitely agree with you about the cat decks, because not only is there the Sultai ones that lose Oko, but they don't really need Oko that much. Oko's just kind of you might as well play it because it's so powerful and you're in the colors.
Yeah.
But Rakdos has been a pretty legit deck too. Jund has been a legit deck, though they're both non-Oko cat decks that have nothing was really competitive with the Oko food decks, but if you discount Oko food, those were some of the top decks in the metagame, even in the Oko meta. So I expect that those will do well. I think Fires is probably another go-to right away as one of the most powerful decks, in Oko standard that probably translates over. And I think Team of Reclamation is the other one, the other deck that really didn't get hit by the bannings at all and was already pretty good even in our past standard. So I think that that's where players will probably immediately focus, but this is such a big shakeup. It's kind of like we're just starting standard over again. It's definitely possible that decks that were tier 3 or even completely off the radar will kind of shoot up towards the top tier of the format, because this is just such a major banning.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy to me? I feel like even with the banning of Once Upon a Time and Oko, it now feels like Eldraine is the new set we've been waiting for, right? Because there's still a lot of powerful cards to play. There's still Rankle, there's still surprisingly Gadwick, cards like that, and as you saw, the Oven and all this. So there's still a ton of powerhouses, and a lot of the concern was them being them banning the face of their set with Oko and things like that. But I think that there's still a lot of play from Eldraine, and now maybe we'll even get to see more than we did before.
Yeah, I think hopefully we get to see other cool cards from Eldraine that just didn't really work in the Oko meta. I think maybe the biggest example of this for me, cards that I'm excited to test out again, are the Mythic Legendary Artifact cycle. Those are cards like Cauldron, really powerful card. The Great Henge, really powerful card. But in a world where Oko just incidentally turns it into a 3/3 Elk in 70% of your matches, it's just not worth to build your deck around. I'm going to get a bunch of creatures in the graveyard to be able to get the Cauldron going or whatever. So I feel like those are some of the cards. Someone else mentioned the Gods might have a chance to return to standard, since they were really silly against Oko. They lose all their abilities. Now all of a sudden they're the super annoying, really hard to kill creatures again. So I feel like there's a lot of cards cards that were just kind of off the table with Oko running around that all of a sudden might be very good. Feasting Troll King's another one that I'm like, they had a little traction the early days of Standard as sort of like a weird dredge deck, but
Cleveland
if it just turns
Cavaliers.
into a 3-3, yeah, there's so much stuff to explore now. So
yeah. Like Cavaliers are now like back on the map. You can play them again. And they're absolute powerhouses. Cavalier of Thorns was pretty big, for a chunk of its Standard life. So
yeah. Cavalier of Thorns is good. The other Cavaliers are powerful. I'm excited to Yarok again. Yarok is the type of card that you really need to cast it and have it sit out for a couple of turns in non-elk form to really do anything. There might be a chance for that to work now. What are some other cards you think get way better as a result of this banning? So maybe discounting stuff that dies to Oko, because everything got elk by Oko. But is there anything else with Veil and also Once Upon a Time getting banned that you're kind of looking at as maybe getting better in the format?
I think we literally listed like every rare and mythic in Standard, but Royal Scions, we haven't talked about Royal Scions. That's a strong three drop Planeswalker. Garrick. Maybe it's time for our boy Garrick to do something. My personal favorite, Feasting Troll King, Seth mentioned. I think that was overshadowed by all the other green stuff. So maybe green survives doing, a fair food deck with Feasting Troll King. Clackbridge Troll, I don't know. I've always wanted to see that work. But I don't know. I think the reality is you're going to see Torbrand.
What do we do?
Imagine if you can't elk Torbrand. What are you going to do, right? Or you're going to see like Knights. Maybe we see the Circle of Loyalty deck or something. Some kind of... we had a bunch of decks that weren't green from the past Pro Tour, right? We've had like Knight decks, Embercleave decks, like Rotting Register, that kind of stuff. So maybe that all actually takes the forefront, or maybe it's just all cats. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
I think the cat deck is beatable. I think the problem was you had to focus so heavily on beating Oko decks that you couldn't really afford to play cards that were bad against Oko but good against cats. Like Krim mentioned Kaya being a good example. I think that's a really good example, but Kaya's just not a card that's especially playable against Oko, so you can't really build your deck in a way to fight the cat decks. I think if cats are really good, with a target on its back, I think it's a very beatable deck. I mean, you play Leyline of the Void in your sideboard if you want to now. That just locks that down hard. So I feel like it is beatable. I don't know. Is there anything you're worried about moving forward? Is there another... So we went from Field of the Dead to Oko. Oko's now gone. Are we going to see another deck rise up and be 50% of the metagame, or do you think this banning actually solves the issues we've been having?
Well, I'm actually worried about cats, not because it's unbeatable, but because it is actually more miserable than Oko. Like, legit,
it's so slow.
For some reason, I was playing Standard like all week. Like, I was like, oh, forget Oko, right? I'm like, I was playing like, what is that? The glitter card. Like, I was playing like an artifact deck, and I was playing my Slice Adventure, and they were all fine, except when you run into the cat deck, and legit, like, I had someone time out like 4 times over the weekend. Like, I'm like. An hour later, like, did I really win this match? I don't know. At least Oko, like, you lose. This one is just like, okay, they're kind of winning, but the combo takes so many clicks, right? So I just really hope that that's not the norm going forward, because all of them, like the Sultai sacrifice, the Rakdos sacrifice, the Jund sacrifice, too many clicks for Cat on Magic Arena. Too many clicks.
Yeah, I think that is a good point. I also was kind of like, I'm glad Once Upon a Time got banned, because that's a card that really slows down Arena obnoxiously, especially on turn 1. You can tell your opponent, they're like, you sit there for 30 seconds on your turn 1, you're like, come on, I know you got the Once Upon a Time, just let me play my stuff. Goose does that too, though. Goose was another card I was like kind of rooting for getting banned, just because it's another card that tends to really slow down games on Arena, so I guess we'll have to live with that one. But yeah, the cat deck is pretty slow. Hopefully it'll be beatable enough that maybe people won't play it too often. I don't know. Like, when 70% of the metagame leaves, things are going to look a lot different. Like, that is just a massive shakeup.
When's our Mythic Championship coming up? Like,
Under a month, 3 weeks.
Eldraine Part 3 in 3 weeks?
3 weeks, I think, yeah. I believe the first full weekend in December, like the 6th through 8th.
All right, so when Arena comes up, it's already up. I don't know, when do the changes go live? They didn't say anything, so did you figure that out, Seth?
Actually, they are live now. I logged into Arena, and they had a big ban announcement, and they gave me back a bunch of wild cards, so at least for me,
how many wild cards
Bannings,
did we get?
I
Did we
think
get the full 12?
4 mythic, 4 rare, 4 uncommon, yeah. So you got the full set for everything that was banned.
Oh, we're rich now.
Yeah.
We're Arena rich.
What is the first deck that you'll be trying out?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm playing Sultai Yarok. I know it's probably not like optimal, but I've missed being able to Panharmonicon in standard, so that's my first deck I'm working on.
I've already got an Esper list built, and I've got a Grixis Fires list built that I've been playing. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I really, really, really like Grixis Fires, so I'm gonna just keep jamming that. Except I do like Kaya. I really like Kaya right now. Like so I'm back on the Esper.
5 color.
No,
5 color Fires, Grim.
No, I can't.
Easy.
Maybe we just play like 4 Cry of the Carnariums, and but that like it doesn't because like Cry of the Carnarium doesn't just end the opponent, right? Like the thing is they could just kill all their cats on their turn, which sounds weird to say, but like they blow up all their own cats on their own turn, and I'm still in trouble. So Kaya, however, gets rid of the oven. Or
you could just tick up to Fairy.
Yeah, I could tick up to Fairy.
And then cast the Cry during your opponent's turn.
So Esper. See? So like it is back on the Esper plan.
It all comes back to Esper, yeah.
Because before I was playing, like I was thinking like maybe I just go and play Bedevil, like a full play set, as opposed to Murderous Rider, because then that blows up the oven. The oven is more of the problem than anything to me.
And it's easier to deal with since the cat keeps getting sacrificed in response, so that's a good point. I appreciate that you're playing Grixis Fires and not a Fires deck that literally can't cast half their cards if you keep Fires off the battlefield. I almost feel bad for some of the people you play against on Arena. Like, really? Like, you're that greedy? You're trying to cast Nicol Bolas with your blue-white mana base, like Grixis, your Jeskai mana base? Like, come on now, opponent.
Oh, Seth.
That's the whole point of your deck.
Seth. Have you not... You say that, but let me tell you something. I am that greedy in Pioneer. And out of the sideboard, I actually play 1 Overgrown Tomb because that allows me to play Tameo out of the sideboard and Garrick.
Ooh, I like that. Well, any other standard banning stuff? We actually have more bannings to talk about, and then even more topics we got to get to. So maybe we should work our way through the rest of this ban list.
All right. Next up, Brawl. Oko is banned. Now, Oko was already banned in Arena. For some reason, they had 2 different ban lists for Paper and Arena. Now they're both the same.
Good call.
I don't think we need more on that. Legacy, Red and 6 is banned.
I haven't played much Legacy lately. The numbers that they posted and what I've heard from Legacy players seems to suggest this is probably a good banning, so I think I'm all for it, even though I haven't played with or against Red and 6 in Legacy hardly at all.
So the TLDR is Wasteland locking people is not cool, right?
Turns
and
out.
Also, a lot of the metagame defining creatures in Legacy have 1 toughness. Mother of Runes, Thalia, Young Pyro. So they're like, okay, Ren and 6 is done. So no more Temur Delver for you guys. You're gonna have to go back to like, I don't know. Do they even play Nimble Mongoose or whatever anymore? I don't even know what Temur Delver looks like nowadays.
I don't think so. I think it's been like 7 or 8 years since there's been Nimble Mongoose.
It's time to go back to those days.
It's not Temur Delver, Richard. It's Canadian Threshold. That's when they used to play Nimble Mongoose.
But I feel like that is the deck that always changes whenever something is broken. Like, that's the deck that you shove Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise in. That's the deck that you put Red and 6 in. Like, it became a deck when they made Delver, right? So I feel like whenever anything breaks in Legacy, it's that deck that gets it. So, yeah. Back to Canadian Threshold to you. Last up. Oh, one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Last up, we have Vintage. Narset Parter of Veils is restricted.
Yeah. That's probably good. I mean, Narset is a pretty obnoxious card, in older formats especially, so I think I'm down with that.
I've never played a game of Vintage my entire life. I don't know what this means, but okay.
I mean, you got to think that in Vintage, with all the fast mana, you can kind of like Narset lock someone on turn 1 for the most part, and decks are built around Ancestral Recalls, Brainstorms, Ponders. So if you just go like turn 1, Black Lotus, Narset, counter force your force, then your opponent just like has a really hard time actually functioning.
But has there never been a card like that does this ever that's been played in Vintage?
Like there was Leovold. I can't remember actually where Leovold is at, although it is a creature. So that does kind of lessen the problem, since you can just kill it with something easier than a Planeswalker.
Like, can't you just Notion Thief someone? Like, I don't know. This is weird. I guess because the cost is low, you just -2 and then get another Brainstorm or something, and you're good to go.
Yeah. The other thing that came out regarding Bannings was this play design article. Did you guys get a chance to catch that?
Yeah.
So my take on this article, to summarize it, and you can see it over on the Mothership. The article is play design lessons learned. The overall takeaway was, yeah, we kind of missed high on Oko, but this is the power level we're aiming for. And in general, I think we hit the power level that we were going for with Throne of Eldraine, discounting a couple of exceptions.
After reading that, I actually am happy, because my biggest complaint with Standard a little while back, like especially when like the Teamer Energy sadness was going on, was that it just felt so weak, all of Standard, right? Like that's why Modern and whatnot just felt like way more exciting to me, was because Standard just felt so underpowered. Like Ixalan, the whole block of Ixalan just felt like, yeah. And I mean, I like Search for Azcanta, but like otherwise, like all the creatures, everything felt so medium, if you would, and not really fun to play with. And then after they increased their power level, I actually really liked it. I mean, yeah, it means that some cards like Oko slip through, but like I do enjoy, R&D taking chances and trying like more powerful cards in Standard, and I'm A-okay with that, even if that means more bannings and stuff like that. So I'm happy they're increasing the power level.
What did you think about it, Richard?
I'm the opposite of Krim. I'd rather them not increase the power level. It seems nowadays, like every Standard set, Legacy, Commander, Modern, like they all get shooken up because you have like crazy cards entering the format. So I think within Standard itself, it doesn't matter what the power level is really. Like if everything is high powered, well, all your decks are high powered, you fight each other. If everything's low powered, it's the same, right? As long as if it's low powered, it has to be interesting. With like story mechanic or flashback or, whatever they make. But when it spills into the other formats, I think it's too much. I mean, I think it's weird that every Standard set release, like Legacy changes. So
That's
to me, is it though? Like the whole point of these old formats is I can play my old deck, right? But I told you guys, right? I was like, oh, Jund, it's just the best cards in Modern. Let's play it, right? And I'm like, well, half my deck is irrelevant because of Modern Horizons and all the latest sets, and to upgrade my deck is another like $400, right? So like I'm like, that feels bad, right? Like especially since it wasn't that long ago that my deck was up to date. So I like the slow trickle of cards into older formats, right? And I like cards that are synergistic. Like, if they print a new combo piece and like a deck becomes a thing, like say copycat combo or something, right? That's fine. But when they start printing like fatal pushes every set, like you just got to update all your decks like all the time, which is kind of what they want because they want you to buy cards. But at the same time, I think the older formats like should move a little slower. And if we want fast paced change, we play Standard. So
I mean, I think from reading that article, I think that's what they were going for. Like they mention cards in Standard not impacting or like not being relevant to players outside of Standard, which I assume they meant Modern, Legacy, Vintage, etc. So I feel like I read that as them saying like they were intentionally trying to print cards in a way that they would be relevant or impact older formats too. I think my only concern is if you're going to walk the tightrope and have things be near the upper limit as far as power level, it's really easy to end up with cards that go a little bit too far, which we saw arguably with Oko and Veil of Summer and Once Upon a Time. So if you're aiming for 9s, when you just make a card a little bit too powerful, you end up with 11 and you need bannings. When if you're aiming for like 7, if you miss a little high, you get a 9. And it's good, but it's probably still not bannably good. So I don't think bannings are necessarily a bad thing. It's just such a big change compared to how Magic has traditionally been, where bannings are traditionally like an extreme rarity in Standard. And I think if this is the power level that Wizards is aiming for, I think as a community, we're just going to have to kind of come to grips that this is the new reality of Standard, and we should probably be expecting to have bannings on a regular basis, because if you're going to shoot for this super high power level, some cards are going to be a little bit more powerful than you expect when you're making them, and then they're going to need to get banned.
Yeah, and also remember, like literally, I don't know, like 6 weeks ago, right? Same card pool with Field of the Dead included. No one was peeping about Oko at all, right? Like everyone's like, oh my God, Field, how could you let this through? Blah, 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 right? So it's a really hard balance game. And if they never ban Field of the Dead, maybe Oko never reaches this level of play. And then Oko is quote unquote fine for Standard, right? So it's the absence or inclusion of a single card can change like the whole dynamic of Standard. So that's why I don't put too much stock into what they say. They're like, yeah, Oko is too powerful. But if they never banned Field of the Dead, we never would have seen it. And then they would have some other reason, right? Oh, we never tested Field of the Dead. So they can write all they want in their play design articles, but just give me good standards, right? Like they can say like, oh, we screwed up. This was the worst ever. We fired the whole team. Or they're like, oh no, we got everything down. We just like, someone in the printer screwed it up. They can say whatever they want, right? As long as they give us good standards, that's all that matters, right? But as long as Standard is bad, like it doesn't matter what they say, right? Like we don't know the inner workings of the team. We can't say anything about it. It's just, we trust you. I hope you do it right. And then if you do it well, everyone will just forget about it. But if you do it wrong, the internet will like burst in outrage, right?
We had a very good run though of Standard for a chunk of time, I would say. I mean, yeah, it was also followed by like the biggest elk, if you would. But I thought it was cool, that we did have a very good Standard for a while.
I gotta ask you though, so assuming we're aiming for this high power level, and I think we're all in agreement, if you aim high, sometimes it's going to go a little too far, which probably means more bannings, at least compared to historically when we had a Standard banning every 7 years or something on average. Do you think that's going to be a problem, especially for the paper part of the game? On Arena, whatever, cards are kind of cheap and you can free to play and they give you wild cards back. But just look at these decks, the Oko decks were $600, $700, almost $800. They've dropped down a little bit because Oko has been decreasing in price. And even the other decks, you're looking at $300, $400 for Jeskai Fires almost. Do you think having a couple of round of bannings each year because of aiming for this high power level, are we going to have people just quitting Standard because of the expense of it and the frustration with spending $500 and then having the deck you spent $500 on get banned?
There is a concern for the paper part of it, right? There's people that'll be oh, I just bought a fresh play set of Okos for Standard and I don't really play, because I know people that just don't play anything outside of Standard. Right, they only play Standard, and yeah, for those people, it'll be rough, right? How do you get around that, right? Because seeing this many bannings a year does make people nervous to buy into paper.
Yeah, that's my one concern. For us, who are very entrenched in the Magic community, we can survive stuff like that. But I've definitely gotten messages. I remember when Emrakul got banned, I got an email that was I'm 15 years old. I got my birthday money. I spent it on Emrakuls and now it's banned. How can I even keep playing Magic? And I'm I'm sorry, kid. I don't know what to say. That really sucks. And if we're having bannings twice a year or something on average, you're going to have a lot more of those 15-year-old kids that are do I even want to play this? Or should I just buy an Xbox One or whatever and forget about this Magic thing?
I mean, we saw it, right? We saw the tournament series in paper a couple weeks ago that didn't fire because no one wanted to play Standard, right? Either you didn't want to invest in Okos because Okos, everyone's theorizing is getting banned, but you don't know, right? So you're not going to drop all this money, and they had to switch to Pioneer. So I think it's already happening, and I think it is really bad, right? Standard is already a tough sell, right? You play your cards for a year or two, and then they're useless. Now it's maybe weeks, right? Imagine next set comes out, okay, Theros, okay, and then initial playtesting, you find some bonkers combo. You're this is Oko. This is Oko, right? And then you got to go buy a playset of these mythics. Are you going to drop $200? Or you're like, oh, this is so Oko that it's going to get banned. Should I actually buy it or not? And then you're going to hesitate. You may not buy, you may or not. And I don't know, it just makes people less inclined to play Magic when stuff like this happens. So I actually hate the precedent that we ban like crazy, right? And like the old days where like nothing gets banned, right? You're going to kind of tough it out, or we're going to have to do a better job so that, you protect players, because Magic is expensive. And if things keep changing like nonstop, like it's not only the Okos that get banned, right? Let's say you bought all the breeding pools, right? But now you don't use them anymore. Now what? Right? You don't play Modern. What is the point of this, right? Like it's not just the cards that get banned. It's all support cards. Your Nissas are now useless if Simic is not a real deck anymore. So it is pretty expensive.
I'm really curious how Wizards came to see Bannings in this way, because it seems like it's not just a shift on the community's part, but it's a shift on Wizards' part, because they were loath to ban cards for up until Kaladesh, really. Like, cards would be busted in standard and very, very strong, and we wouldn't get bannings. That was just not how it worked. The community didn't expect bannings. Wizards didn't give bannings. So I'm curious what the change is at Wizards. It might be going like a little bit too far and like putting too much stuff together, but I almost think maybe they have come around. We've talked about this before a little bit about like maybe paper is about casual now, and it's about commander products, and it's about mystery boosters, and it's about side events at Magic Fest. So maybe they're more accepting of bannings because their plan is to have competitive standard be a digital format for the most part. And then that lessens the pain if people are the paper cards people are buying are for their commander decks or to play a whatever cube draft or a chaos draft. And then if you got to ban standard cards, if people are only playing on Magic Arena, like it's not as big of a deal. So you think this ties into like the long-term trajectory of how Wizards is handling paper Magic versus digital Magic? Do you think that's part of the plan?
I think definitely, because I think back in the old days, before, when only Magic Online existed.
Back in my day.
If Standard was broken, it would take you months to realize this, right? Like, by the time, the pre-order, the sales data from the latest set comes back, it's like already like a year or something, right? Like, oh, no one's actually attending events. Like the feedback was so slow. Now, when your standard sucks, you can just be like, last week we lost like 5 million players on Magic Arena, right? And it looks really bad, and they can pinpoint it exactly so they can fix it, or quote unquote fix it, right? So I do think it is Arena, right? They can instantly tell if something is good or bad, because out of nowhere, like you lose let's say you lose 25% of your players, or 25% of people are playing, or less people are playing ranked or something like that, right? You can tell immediately. Whereas back in the day, it took a really long time for you to figure that out. And by the time you figured it out, it was like too late to make any changes, right? Because if you did a banning, it would take another like year to get your data, and then like, nothing useful would happen. So I think it is all because Arena and like, how big Magic is now, right? It's more important. It's harder for them to grow it, every quarter because it's so big now. So they have to do more dramatic things. And that's why we see like 8 million product releases. We see 8 million bannings to go with them. I think it's all related.
All right, so let's move on. We've spent quite a while talking about bannings. We got a couple other topics that we really want to hit up with. The other big one being some Magic Arena news that came out this week. So, Richard, what was the announcement about for Magic Arena? The kind of the TLDR.
All right, historic. They gave us the cards. Are you ready? I will list off the 20 new cards that are releasing this Wednesday. Is that right? In 2 days?
The 21st, which, Thursday?
Thursday,
I think.
Soul Warden, Distant Melody, Treasure Hunt, Tendrils of Corruption, Goblin Matron, Kiln Fiend, Elvish Visionary, Mind Stone, Ornithopter, Burning Tree Emissary, Kinsbale Cavalier, Hypnotic Spectre, Imperious, Perfect, Cryptbreaker, Fauna Shaman, Darksteel Reactor, Captain Sisei, Phyrexian Arena, Hidetsugu's Second Right, Sarah Ascendant.
I gotta say, I'm really happy with this list.
Role player cards, right? It's not the Dark Confidant, Tron lands, or whatever broken things we're imagining. It's like little cards that help archetypes that almost exist in our card pool.
And to be fair, we weren't just imagining. It was Wizards that put out the, like, Brainstorm, Dark Confidant, Wormcoil list of cards they were considering. So it wasn't like we just, like, ran wild with it. Like, Wizards are the one that put out those card names, but I think this is way better. This is exactly what I was hoping they would do, with the new cards to Historic, rather than putting in Wormcoil type cards that just dominate every other 6-drop in the format. I feel like these cards, while less powerful, I think that they support some recently rotated archetypes, goblins, elves, life gain, popular, like, semi-casual themes that people are going to want to play. So I feel like this is actually a really sweet list of cards, and I'm pretty happy with it.
I'm really excited to see Phyrexian Arena and play with, like, Hypnotic Spectre, but I'm
Mono Black Control.
Yeah. But, like, at the same time, I'm on the other side of it where I think this list isn't that powerful. I wanted a little more.
It is definitely not as powerful as Wormcoils and Dark Confidants and Brainstorms or whatever, but personally, I was skeptical about adding really powerful cards, so for me, I think I'm happier with it. I'm also, another part of the announcement, starting in January, they're actually going to support Historic. It's going to have an evergreen competitive queue, which is something I've, like, written articles about and tweeted about, and just, like, so I'm really happy that Wizards is finally taking the initiative and putting other formats on Arena full time. This is kind of like the first step towards that, which I think is pretty exciting as well.
Yeah.
So also in the announcement, they mentioned that they are considering Pioneer.
Working towards, I think were the exact words. Working towards, but it's going to take a while.
So it's on the radar, but they didn't give any plans. But yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. Like, so seeing this list of cards, are you guys hyped about Historic, or are you still like, but Pioneer?
I'm still but Pioneer. Like, this card, like, this list, as you already know, doesn't do much for me outside of, like, maybe making a few adorable mono black control decks. But, like, outside of that, it's not something I could see me playing day in and day out, right? Like, these cards don't do anything for me. Not yet. Not until enough, like, sets have rotated out of standard. But Pioneer, however, is it like definitely feels like a whole different format, and whereas this just feels like, I don't know, standard plus a few random cards.
20 to be precise.
20, yes. 20 random cards that aren't that powerful. So I just don't feel like I'm getting, like, the feel of, like, when I play Pioneer Modern or anything. It doesn't excite me. It doesn't make me want to immediately play it again.
But Kinsville Cavalier.
I mean,
Mind Stone.
Like, why is there a Kithkin here?
But Mind Stone. Yes. Like,
wait. All right. There's one more important thing here. You can buy all 20 cards for 3,400 gems.
I will say a bit of constructive criticism. Didn't Wizards say there would be a way that you could get these cards for free? Like, I vividly remember the initial announcement saying that there was going to be, like, some sort of event where you could just, like, get these cards for playing in it.
So they have an event, but they're for card styles. So for 1,000 gold, you can play as much as you want, apparently. And then 5 wins will get you, or each win will get you a card style. And then you can go up to 5 wins. But you do have to buy basically a complete set if you want to buy or use your wild cards, which is weird because it's not even a pack. It's not an event. It's just straight up buy them with gems.
Yeah. I mean, I wish you could buy more cards with gems. I would love that. That would be close to being able to actually have, like, a real economy. Yeah, like, if you could buy wild cards or singles, oh man, that would be so. That would be so. No one would
ever open a pack, and how would they make their money?
Yes. Yeah, I'm just disappointed because I was under the impression that there was going to be a way for players to win these cards for free, and it sounds like they maybe backtracked on that idea.
Wait, which rarity are these things?
What do you mean?
Are they like the original rarities, or are they like what kind of wild card do I need to get these cards?
I mean, Hypnotic Spectre is rare, right? It was rare, and I think that means that
is it still rare? So it's the original.
It wasn't actually. Wasn't Hippie a uncommon back in the day, or has it always been rare?
I thought it was uncommon. Like,
I thought it was like an uncommon and like revised or something, and then it turned into a rare. But yes, I think most of these are rares, although cards that are only printed as like commons or uncommons have their original rarity. So like Goblin Matron, I believe is a common.
Thought it was
Distant
uncommon.
Melody I know is, Treasure Hunt is, but then a lot of the other cards are rares. So
Yeah.
I will say one last thing on this. I'm more excited for Historic because they announced they're going to support Pioneer and that they're working towards Pioneer. The way I view this format is, if you've been playing Magic Online for a long time, they used to have a format called Classic, which was basically vintage, but you didn't actually have Power 9 or a lot of other vintage cards because they weren't on Magic Online. So they had a format called Vintage, which was basically, or called Classic, which was basically vintage with whatever cards happened to be on Magic Online. Eventually, they actually added Power 9, and the rest of the cards you needed for Vintage. Classic kind of just died because who's going to play this fake format when there's a real format supported? I think that's exactly what's going to happen with Historic and Pioneer. I like the idea of Historic as another way to fill my time on Arena while I'm waiting for them to add Pioneer. But as soon as they actually have Pioneer, and hopefully it actually happens quicker than we think, and it's in the not super distant future, then I think Historic is 100% a dead format. It's done over. Maybe they don't officially kill it, but I think no one plays it, and eventually it'll just kind of fade away and die.
Yeah, I mean, that just means it's set up for mediocrity. Like, if they can't get standard right, with all the resources they put into it, if they are imagining Historic dies in the future, like, how much effort do you think they put into balancing and testing this format? Like, probably not much, right? And then that means it probably won't be that fun, right? So I hope it's not that, right? I hope they're actually all in and they're like, yeah, Historic is a real format. We're going to put all of our resources into it. Like, the success of Arena depends on this. And then they make a fun format, as opposed to it's a holdover for Pioneer, because then it's just guaranteed to be bad.
Yeah. I mean, as long as it's not a holdover for too long, I think it's fine. Like, I'm hopeful that we'll have Pioneer in the next couple of years, maybe. They announce later next year they're going to start.
I want it by summer.
Magic Arena 2 will be out by then, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, they said next year they're going to start doing remastered sets that combine together multiple sets and have the relevant cards in them. So we know that they're going to start putting more old cards on the client starting next year. So fingers crossed, like, maybe we can have something that is at least very close to Pioneer in the not super distant future.
I want Pioneer, actual Pioneer, by summer.
Oh, I mean, I would love to have it next week. I don't know how practical it is to add that many sets in that amount of time, but that would be awesome if they could.
Like, you can dial back the animations. Like, just give me Pioneer by summer. Like, oh, please. Please.
All right. Did we have any other? I think that was all the Arena news. Other thing we wanted to touch on quickly before jumping into fish mail, we had a big Pioneer tournament. It was the SCG Invitational this weekend featuring Modern and Pioneer. What did y'all make of that tournament?
I didn't watch it.
I didn't watch it. But Mono Black Aggro took first place.
Mono Black Aggro is kind of like the new hot deck in the format. Yeah, I think Mono Black Aggro, it seems pretty reasonable. And I think it's also like fairly budget friendly if you're looking for an intro deck, because it's playing a bunch of pretty bad black 1-drops that are, I assume, pretty cheap. So yeah, that was cool to see it take it down. I think the green decks still look really powerful. Field of the Dead is the other thing that's really been on the rise in the last week. Some these like Bant, Ramp, Control, Field of the Dead decks. I wouldn't be super surprised if Field of the Dead was high on the watch list in terms of like future bannings. That's a card that over the weekend, I know like Sam Black was talking about and Todd Anderson, like a lot of people that were at the tournament were like, this is like moved to the top of my Pioneer ban list. So I could definitely see that happening. But overall, the format still looked pretty diverse. I watched a lot of the tournament and it kind of feels like Modern where you don't die on turn 3, but you still, the most played decks are 15, 20% of the format, something like that. There's a huge number of viable decks. So I think we're, a month and a half into the format now, and it's still maintaining that identity, which I think is what people want out of the format.
Yeah, the top 16 is super diverse, and oh my god, I just found Is It in Soul deck, but
yep,
it looks nothing like standard, right? Standard is like there's like 2 decks here, right? But here there's actually like so many decks still, and that's good, right? Because we're several weeks into the format. We were afraid if it was just gonna be like a single deck format, but turns out no, you can play any deck you want, and lots of different decks, lots of different colors. which is important. So yeah, it's looking pretty good for Pioneer.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, and I'm sure, I think the hype will continue, at least up through the beginning of the year when we have like the Players Tour, GP Star. I think if anything, this might actually be like the lull as people are worried about actually like investing in the format too much while we get weekly BNRs. I wouldn't be surprised to see another explosion of interest at the start of the year once we actually have the big paper events firing consistently.
I would also just like to point out that I think it's pretty cool that Vivian Arcbow Ranger is like firing off right now in like formats. Like it's even played in like a mono green devotion in modern, right? Like yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that was something I actually saw on camera this weekend is because of the success of Mono Green Devotion with like Line of Abundance and Pioneer before it was banned, players are playing that in Modern now. Like you get a couple of upgrades in Modern, but it's basically the same deck that was so dominant in Pioneer that they had to ban cards from it. So it's been interesting to see Modern being impacted by Pioneer, basically, because no one had really tried that style of devotion deck with Leyline of Abundance in Modern until after people started doing it in Pioneer.
Yeah. And like now, like there's like a ton of blight beetles everywhere. Like
I do think Nykthos might still end up getting banned in the format. The green decks, Once Upon a Time's got to be banned. Please, for the love of God, when you ban cards today, Wizards, just get rid of Once Upon a Time everywhere.
And Nexus of Fate.
So much Pioneer, and the consistency that green decks can go turn 1 Mana Dork, turn 2 Steel Leaf Champion, Yorvo, Oko, like some really busted 3-drop. It's like 100%. When you have Once Upon a Time and your deck has a lot of redundancy and you have London Mulligans to get like a free mulligan if you need to, those starts happen so often and we don't have the removal in the format to deal with it. Like we just don't have the hard removal.
I feel that's not a problem. I mean, okay, you're allowed to do that if you play 8 to 10 1-drops, right? Like that's how you used to do it the old fashioned way, right? Like now you can play 4 with 4 Once Upon a Time, right? But Pioneer has 8 Mana Dorks, right? It must, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have Mystic and Llanowar.
Yeah.
And then Goose.
So I feel like you're going to see that with or without Once Upon a Time. Like it's like don't print 3 CMC 5 power creatures is what you're trying to say, Seth, because it's going to happen, right? If you have all those Mana Dorks and then between Yorvo and Lovestruck Beast, like you will always have a 3 mana 5 power creature anyway. So that's not Once Upon a Time. That's just green cards.
That's
maybe
why,
that's true.
Like I've now with my Noxious Grasp not being taxed, like at least paper wise in standard, I can just move all my Noxious Grasp in my Pioneer deck and not have to swap in between events because I play 4 Noxious Grasps in the side of my Pioneer deck.
Did you really not want to buy $5 more worth of Noxious Grasp to avoid resleeping every time you want to switch formats?
No, I don't, Seth. No, I don't.
I appreciate your dedication, Grim. Yeah, I think the problem is like Fatal Push is hard to refold. Abrade style removal spells can't kill the 4 toughness creatures. So I think it's more of a product of like the big 3-drop green creatures just line up really well with the most commonly played removal in the format, which is probably part of what makes it obnoxious. Like if you could just Abrade or Fatal Push away the Steel Leaf Champion or whatever, it would be a lot easier, but it's actually really hard to do that in Pioneer.
Yeah.
Chump block. Trigger.
All my creatures are like 2 powered, so I can't even block the darn Steel Leaf Champion. I'm like, oh my god.
Wow.
Oh my god.
Play real creatures, Seth. What are you doing?
Yeah, all right. Well, let's answer some fish mail before we run out of time today.
All right, if you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. First question, Antonio Slores. I'm so sorry. Hey guys, really enjoy the podcast. If WotC creates a Mull dual land, as it comes into play, you may put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. If you don't, it comes into play tapped. Add X or Y mana. Good enough? / bad design. Is it fetchable? I think it has to be fetchable.
Yeah, it has to be fetchable.
If it's fetchable, would you play that? Would you just like chuck a card and not even chuck a card in the graveyard to power up your delve, but to like bottom of the library?
I think I think maybe you'd have to be looking at like a 5-color land.
Yeah.
Like Gemstone Caverns or Gemstone Mine. Like, I think if you're going to have that big of a drawback that you go down a card, I think it's got to tap for any color.
And it would be a gemstone that also doesn't have counter. Like, it just always adds whatever I want.
A city of brass.
But how do we make that
Though.
fetchable?
You just make it land, plains, island, forest, mountain.
All 5?
Yeah.
But then it would be so broken with like domain, right?
Also dies. It also gets blown up like and dunked on by every hate card, right? Like choke, like boil.
Yeah, I mean, what do you want, man? It's a fetchable 5-color dual land.
Desolation.
It might still be too good. Do you think it might be too good?
I don't think it would be.
Like, I mean, you would never play it in a Jund deck, right? But if you're playing like a combo deck, like, what does one card mean to you, right? It's like if you can get your mana, it's pretty good, right?
Like, you already have like City of Brass, Mana Confluence, Gemstone Mine, Gemstone Cavern. Like,
But these would be fetchable.
Would you play it over those cards?
I don't know, but you could do, you could like turn 1 black card into turn 2 white into turn 3 green or something. Like, you could do weird stuff.
Well, you would be heavily relying on first off a painful mana base because you would have to play like 4 City of Brass, 4 Mana Confluence, 4.
The thing is, it's a fetch land, right? So you don't need to fetch and discard your hand. You can fetch like a normal fetch land if it's sufficient, right? It's like when you really do need that like special color. Like, can you imagine Arbor Elf with this thing? You can like somehow Boros Charm someone with like a forest, right? So I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think it might be. I think it's playable. I would like to see them do something like that. Captain WoW 26. Hey guys, what do you think the best counter spells in Pioneer would be? Grim, have you had a sampling of every card that says counter target?
Yes, I have sampled this. Yes.
What are the best ones?
Prior to Veil of Summer, I mean, after Veil of Summer, I would say that. I mean, I've been playing Disallow and Absorb. I've been doing a split. The ability to counter activated abilities or like, Planeswalker ults has been pretty huge. Maybe even disallowing a Marvel activation, anything like that, or, Ulamog's, cast trigger. But Absorb, the format is quite aggressive. And, I'm not gonna lie to you, there's a lot of tribal decks, and like Adanto Vanguard is terrifying. So I need to gain some life, and I think Absorb is pretty big here too.
I think those are the two that I have been countered by the most.
Yeah. And I think you play both. I like both. I like a 2-2 split. So that's what I do in my deck. Cause I it seems weird playing a 3-mana counterspell outside of standard, but it's good. They're good in this format.
All right. Follow-up question from Hyper Librarian. What would Magic be like if counterspells didn't exist?
I'd probably be playing Pokemon or something.
Yeah, is it like Hearthstone at this point? Like, literally?
Yeah, it actually would just be like Hearthstone. Yeah, there'd be... I mean, so we only have like Doom Blades and stuff like that for interaction. Oh, that is.
I feel like we've
what does
seen
blue
this.
do?
We've had standards where counterspells were bad and no one played any counterspells. And like that's what Magic would look like during those ones, right?
And that was not a great
just
Magic.
Recently.
Yeah.
Like with Teferi and Veil of Summer, no one's really been playing counterspells the last few months.
That's what you think, Seth.
Well, except for
Veil of
Grim,
Summer
you don't
is
count
counterspell.
I think older formats would be destroyed. Like Legacy without counterspells, you would just die on turn 1. It would be whoever can race to the turn 1 kill most consistently.
Yeah, you need counter magic.
It's a necessary evil.
Yes. Yes.
Hubris 3. For the Commander Clash logo, who's the angry fish?
Ooh.
Oh.
Who's the angry one this season?
This season?
I feel like
it hasn't been
there's
very
more angry
season.
fish, actually. I would say everyone except me is the angry fish because everybody kills me all the time. And I guess, or maybe that makes me the angry fish because everybody kills me. Who knows?
I mean, you do always start with a counterbalance on the battlefield.
I don't know how.
Every week.
I feel like that's my Planeswalker ability. Just find a counter spell. +1, find counter spell. or counterbalance. But like legitimately, everyone is like, there's no point in politicking this season because it's just like everyone's like, no. We're just killing Crim. He has a counterbalance.
I don't even know how you keep getting a counterbalance on the battlefield in Commander. Like, are you stacking your deck somehow?
Digitally?
On Magic Online? Yeah, like how does it's like a 99 card deck? How does this guy always have like a turn 2 counterbalance? What's going on?
But the thing is, I never have the top. It's always just blind counterbalance flips.
You need to up your deck stacking game. You
apparently, like one of the things I have to rely on Seth.
All right, free jazz. What's the most oppressive broken deck this year? Hogak, Oko, or KCI?
By the numbers, Oko. Because
I think Hogak was
Hogak was like 30%, right?
That's true, but it's also modern, so the bar is a little different, I think. But percentage wise, you're definitely correct. But I think as far as just like playing against both of those decks, I don't know. Maybe it's just that Hogak kills you so quickly that it's better in a weird way because at least you don't have to sit there for an hour while you wait for your Oko opponent to kill you. Like maybe that's the upside. They just straight up kill you on turn 2 and you're like, oh, okay, on to the next one.
Yeah, there's no illusion that you might win this game, right? Like it's just like, no, you're dead.
Suntail Hawkins. In Throne of Eldraine pre-release, one of my opponents was young and playing way too fast. He attacked into Revenge of Ravens, which would have killed him, and then took it back. I let it go, but after multiple less serious mistakes, I called him out. What would you have done?
Ooh.
See, I normally, I'm the person even at a GP level where I would just be like, that's fine, whatever, you just do it again. And I would just let you keep doing it over again, though. But I mean, well, no, I wouldn't. Maybe I wouldn't. Like, hold on, I can't say that because then people are like, oh, I'll just keep doing it when I play against Crim.
Oh, now you know how to beat Crim. Farming for buys at a Grand Prix. I attack. Oh, you have a combat trick? Let me take it back.
Yeah. I mean, like, legitimately, I would like just be like, hey, yeah, your chalice trigger. I play my opponents. I remind my opponents of their chalice triggers and whatnot, and like. And I don't know. I feel like I would just let them take it back, but I would let them take it back because I would let a lot of things fly.
I mean, I think at a pre-release, I would let them probably keep doing it as well. I've always thought of pre-releases as like super casual, where like people who have never even played before or haven't played hardly at all can go in and play. So I think if it was a Grand Prix or Pro Tour, I would probably do something differently at some point. But at a pre-release, I don't know. I don't know if I would ever like call someone out really at a pre-release.
Just randomly super mad at
this is not the first. This is not just a single instance, right? Like, what if every turn you like attack into Revenge of Ravens? Right, so I feel you could go either way, right? Like either, after like the third time, you're like, okay, that's the last one. Next time it happens, you're gonna die, okay?
I mean, yeah, I guess like there is.
Or you could be like, I guess you can keep doing it. Like, I don't know. Then you're not really playing Magic anymore, right? You're just making up stuff and go. Like, I feel like one or two is fine, but if you just keep doing it, like, I don't know what's going on anymore, right?
I mean, if they're. I guess I hadn't considered that maybe they just kept attacking into Revenge of the Raven. I thought they were doing different mistakes each turn, but if they just keep doing the same one over and over again, yeah, I would probably say something about that too at some point.
Or maybe the correct answer is to dream crush them and then offer a practice game after so that they can clean up. I don't know, right? Like, what are you supposed to do?
Okay. Let me rephrase. I think I would eventually make them take the damage. But it would be on like the 9th time.
Crim is too nice.
But on the 9th time, nah, bud, sorry, you gotta take the damage.
That's like you take one Raven trigger. I'll let you keep the other life. It's fine. All right, Plain Brad. Is Mono Black aggro a fair deck in Pioneer? If so, why is it so hard to beat?
I think it is a fair deck.
Pretty darn fair to me.
Yeah.
Why is it hard? Why is it even a good deck?
Well, there's a lot of recursion, I think, in Bloodsoaked Champions, Scrap Heap Scroungers, and things like that, right? And also being able to
disrupt people, though.
So what?
How do you disrupt? You just have like 4 Thoughtseize, and like that's your way to beat anything. Like,
oh, how does the Mono Black deck disrupt, or how do you disrupt the Mono Black deck?
Yeah. How does it not die to, decks that are doing much bigger things than it.
It goes wide pretty quick. I mean, it has a ton of 1-drops. I think it's like 12 1-drops or something like that, right?
And I mean, it does have Fatal Push, Thoughtseize, and usually 4 Murderous Riders and some number of Rankles, which is kind of
Rankle is really good.
And you get Smuggler's Copter, which is busted, and you get Mutavault, which is also really strong, I think, in the format. So it has a lot of this like sneaky flood out protection for being a very aggressive deck. Saw some of the games over the weekend, and with Castle Lockwane, Mutavaults, Rankles and Copters, which let you like filter away dead Thoughtseizes and Fatal Pushes if they're bad. The deck is actually way more resilient and able to go long than you would think when you see like 12 1-drops or whatever in a deck.
Yeah, like it's very verdict proof almost. Like, yeah, you blow it up and then it all comes back, right? And then Smuggler's Copter doesn't get swept away unless there's a 3 fairy. And then same with Mutavault, right?
Oh, there's so much synergy. If you Night Market Lookout to crew the Smuggler's Copter and attack, that's like 4 damage.
Yeah.
That's like a janky old standard combo.
Wait, it was. No, wait, we never played this in standard, did we?
I think Copter was so good. I don't remember if Mono Black was actually good in standard, but
Mono Black has not been good in standard, I don't think, since Theros.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Back in the Gary days.
Put 4 pack racks in the sideboard for the lulls.
That synergy. And then you get back like your Gutter Bones and Blood-Soaked Champions. Ooh.
Well, I'm going to try this deck after the podcast. Next question. Tim Wan 7. What's your advice for players who open Oko and Once Upon a Time during Eldraine drafts in paper? Are the cards worth keeping to build a Pioneer/Modern deck over time, or should they be kept in a collection binder forever?
Well, good news is they will probably, at least at this point, still have value because they are played in older formats. So they still should be decent opens. I would be worried about the long-term hold plan just because Once Upon a Time, I really think it's probably going to get banned in more formats. And Oko, I don't think it's impossible that it ends up getting banned in a format like Pioneer. So I think it's risky to plan on just holding them long-term because they might end up getting banned in more formats.
I definitely see Once Upon a Time getting banned in like more formats. Oko, however, I feel like is oddly enough just fine in older formats. Very powerful, ridiculously powerful, but fine.
All right. Richel, do you think the competition of other card games is putting pressure under Magic Design to keep the game interesting among the options? Hearthstone brought back cards to make the nets fresh, and Legends of Runeterra is coming.
I think for them, they should that's just like outside noise, right? Like I don't think they need to worry about all that. Just keep making the game that they want to make. I don't think it does pressure them to make the game any differently than what they were already doing.
I'm more concerned about like internal pressure from Hasbro than I am about outside games. I think like Hasbro might be like, we really want to keep seeing profits like quarter by quarter, so do whatever you can to make sure like the numbers go up 3 months from now. To me, that's a bigger concern than external games.
Yeah, I mean, I think it adds pressure in that they need to make their game good, but I don't think they're seeing like, oh, this game has this feature, we need to one-up them. Like, I don't think that happens, right? But if you make bad standard, people will turn off Arena and play Hearthstone, right? So you need to be aware of that and make a good standard so people will actually play it, right? So there is pressure, but I don't think it's that direct. It's more just we want people to play Magic and not other games. Last question. Dylan Hunter, there's been a lot of talk about how green has become way more powerful over the last years after being kind of bad for most of Magic's history. How would you guys make white a similarly powerful color while staying in its color identity?
Ooh. I don't know if I want another color to be as good as green has been. Life gain, I guess. You gain life. You can kill things unconditionally to some extent. Wraths.
I think exiles. Like a lot more exile. Yeah. Like a 4-mana wrath that just exiles creatures.
I would like to see a very hateful bear. Like Athalia, 2/1, 2 mana first strike. And whenever you activate a Planeswalker Loyal ability, you have to pay 1 mana. or something like that.
I think that's got to be something that's coming down, right? At some point, right? I
More
think,
Planeswalker
or even more
hate's a good
hateful,
idea.
like just Planeswalker cards cost 2 more or something, right? Like just targeted hate.
What about like a
Something
collector
like that.
for Planeswalkers? Just
Yeah.
straight up
Oh, just
activate
turn
them.
them off.
well,
Yep, done.
I think white needs non like enchantment planeswalker like removal that isn't like planar cleansing and like the cheap and efficient planeswalker removal. So
Yeah, I
like
think-
Swords to Planeswalker.
yeah, swords to planeswalker. Like
Oh, how sweet would that be? 1 mana, Oko God, gain 3 life.
oh, like yeah, sure, get a tap land or something like that, right? Like
I think that's a really good point, though.
Path to Oko. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
I think that's a good point because in a world of like Arena and Best of One, and we have all these like flexible Knight of Autumns, Assassin's trophies, white removal, like the Oblivion Ring style removal, has arguably gotten a lot worse in the last couple years. So I think more removal that isn't enchantment based, like you said, would actually go a long way. More like Swords to Plowshares, Declaration in Stone style cards, and less like here's an enchantment to sit out and be bounced by Teferi and give you your thing back.
yeah,
But didn't Maro say like swords and path like break the color pie? So I don't know. But then Declaration in Stone is the same thing, though. So I'm not very sure.
I mean,
I
like,
think it might have been the cheapness that he commented on. Like it was too cheap for what white should be able to do.
sure, 2 mana then. Let's make it 2 mana and you do the same thing. Target creature or planeswalker, its controller gets like a tapped land. But then I guess that's still pretty cheap, right? Because then they just
That's still pretty good. It has
Yeah.
to be like 3 mana or something for standard.
yeah. Because I mean, then that's just like you paid 2 mana to do this, and like I don't know, I spent 6 mana to play Liliana, Commander of
Yeah.
Dreadhorde or whatever.
But I also think people are sleeping on white. I think white has been one of the more powerful colors in the recent years, right? You just like forget about it because they're not memorable cards. Like History of Benalia, Gideon, like all the Gideons. Remember, like, oh my god, another pushed Gideon.
Yeah,
Avacyn,
Yep.
like Settle the Wreckage. Like we've had a bunch of strong. Just people don't remember them, right? Like I feel like red has kind of sucked or something. I don't actually know. Hazoret's pretty good, but there's always like a mono red card with like a collection of bad red cards that like makes the deck legit. So then you don't remember that, right? Like, when's the last time we had a lightning bolt, right? Like never, right?
we
Like,
did.
Lightning
Wizards
Strike's the
Lightning.
best. Wizards Lightning, Skewer the Critics. Okay, take that back. Maybe you're right.
Yeah, yeah.
It might just be that green has been too good. I think like how
Yeah.
good green has been is probably an unreasonably high standard for any color.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Those are all the questions we have time for this week. Thank you to everyone who sent them in. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 251 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard Krim, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening, and thanks to Spikes Academy for supporting the show. You can check out their new t-shirt collection over at spikesacademy.myshopify.com. So thank you to them. And we will be back next week to talk about whatever's going on in the world of Magic. So until then, this is the crew signing out.